Okay, so on this one, I'm gonna cover wiring of these two lockers. They come with harnesses that are, universal, but they're complete. And really the only modification I did was shortening the length, because they're, again, being universal, they're made to cover basically any length of vehicle. So as you saw in the diff install, this is the little fitting, the wiring comes out of the case. I still got to do some looming and zip tying, but basically you want the rig at full droop, and then still give this a little leeway, and tie it up to something secure away from the exhaust, or any moving parts. And then in the rear, it's kind of dark, but I basically piggybacked this brake line, zip tied it in a couple spots. And then on the Samurai, down the passenger frame rail, you've got all of your hard lines, like your fuel and your brake lines. And I basically zip tied that wire along, and then came up. Something to stand on. Here's the battery. And so here's the two leads. And the cool thing about Samurais is they have all these wire hangers. They're flexible, so you just bend them open, stick your wires in and bend them over. So I came up the frame rail. The forward one is the front, the rear one's the rear. I come up, snake behind the battery, and then took a razor and carefully opened up this grommet a little bit. And again, this is the passenger side of a US model. This is going to vary if you have a right-hand drive. So that grommet's easily reachable right up behind. It's basically right here behind. So I come through, run along this tube, and in this vehicle, you can see I've got the two switches right there in the spot that would be a clock. This one didn't have a clock, and that had already been cut out previously. And so I made this little cover plate to kind of clean it up and give a nice secure mounting for the switches. And the order, I go front on the left and rear on the right, just because that seems more natural. Front and rear, in a quick situation, you're not trying to remember what's what. And the owner also thought that was the best way to go. But you can go any way you want. So the harness comes out of here, and there's basically a Y in it that naturally landed. Well, anyway, I cut, the leads are real long. I probably cut 5 to 6 feet out of each one and did the splicing up under here to shorten them. And then there's a Y in the harness. One part goes up to the switches, and then the other part continues on. And I'll go around to that side. And I should have grabbed a flashlight. I'm gonna take a break a second and get some light so we can see this better. I'll be right back. Okay, now we're back with some light. So, something you want to keep in mind, you could wire these directly to the battery, but that's really not a good idea, because if you were to leave this on, it would draw your battery dead. And it could get bumped if you have kids or dogs in here or whatever, and it's just, you don't want those things left on with the vehicle off. So the easiest way on Samurai is in here on the fuse box. At auto parts stores, you can get these little piggyback fuse adapters. So this plugs into the fuse box, and then the original fuse is this one that's closer, and then your add-on circuit is this outer one. So I use the radio circuit because it's switched with the key, and it's got plenty of capacity left for these lockers. They They draw about 1 amp when they're on. And so the 2 switch power wires come in, and then they, you know, one's for the front, one's for the rear. They just come together. They can share the power, and then into that piggyback fuse holder. And then I grounded. There's a ground wires, and same thing, 2 of them together into one ring terminal, grounded right here in the body. I like to do it in the interior if I can. I mean, the wire naturally runs here anyway, then this is, you know, protected from the elements, and it shouldn't corrode. There's one more group of wires I didn't hook up on this one. They're optional. I left it here to where the owner can later if he wants. But what this one is illumination if you have your headlights on. So what will happen is, let's climb up here. When the lockers are in use, that's hard to see, but basically the little locker icon lights up. But if you were to have your headlights on, this TRE part lights up. And being this high, close to his line of sight, I wasn't sure if that would be annoying to him or not. So I'm gonna discuss that with him, and we may or may not hook up that illumination. So that's pretty much it. I mean, you just connect them to your diffs, find a good safe path to run down the chassis, and then, you know, up the fender well through that hole. And then there's a good amount of length. You know, if you wanted to put your switches down here or under here, I mean, pretty much anywhere in this center area, and possibly even over here they would reach. Pretty decent harness, pretty straightforward. Not too many things to connect. And then, yeah, you just gotta make sure they're fused. I mean, when you're doing aftermarket or add-on wiring, fuses are very, very important, and you want the fuse to be as close as possible to your power source. If you were to kick up a stick or a rock and it were to cut through those wires, you know, without a fuse, that could be a fire hazard. So anyway, that wraps up the wiring. It's pretty easy. I mean, I think besides building the switch panel, I think the wiring took about an hour. You know, it doesn't take anything special, a pair of crimpers and wire strippers. And that's about it. So I think this is gonna be a pretty nice setup. You know, as you're sitting in here, you know, very quick and easy to get to and reach. You don't have to bend forward and fumble. I kind of like this spot. I might copy this when I build my other Samurai. All right, so that's it. If you got any questions, reach out in the comments. Thanks for watching.